We watched every Saw movie ever to finally settle the debate on what is the greatest Saw movie of all time. And what better way to arrive at the answer than a tier list. However, this isn't just any tier list, as the movies will be meticulously judged on a variety of factors, including the quality of the villains, the ingenuity of the traps, critical and audience reception, and of course, box office success. So, let's get to it, shall we? Saw. We start off with the first movie in the franchise, simply titled Saw, directed by James Wan. This film introduced us to the sadistic yet brilliant mind of John Kramer, aka the Jigsaw Killer. Wan's direction and Lee Whannell's screenplay crafted a narrative that would become the backbone of the entire series. Saw is iconic for its suspenseful storytelling and mind-bending twists. It centers around two strangers, Dr. Lawrence Gordon and Adam, who awaken in a decrepit bathroom chained to pipes. Between them lies a life-or-death riddle set by the enigmatic Jigsaw, setting the tone for a series filled with moral dilemmas and gruesome traps. Verdict: the movie rightly earns its place in the A tier. John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, is a masterful villain, a complex character who seeks to teach his victims life-altering lessons. The traps in this film are ingeniously designed, serving as more than just devices for gore. They are symbolic of the moral dilemmas Jigsaw poses. Critical and audience reception for this movie was overwhelmingly positive, with praise for its suspenseful storytelling. It's not only a standout in the franchise, but also a significant milestone in the horror genre. Box office success? It catapulted the series into stardom. Saw 2. And with that stardom came the inevitable sequel. Saw 2 expands upon the character of Amanda Young, who was introduced in the first film, providing more insight into her backstory and her connection to Jigsaw. The elimination format of the Jigsaw games was introduced that became tradition in the films that followed. The film also introduces the infamous death mask, which became a recurring item in later installments. While Saw 2 primarily builds upon the groundwork laid by the original film, it establishes a template for the franchise's signature style, blending intricate traps, psychological tension, and character development. Verdict: Saw 2 joins its predecessor in the A tier. John Kramer and Amanda Young are worthy antagonists. The traps become more intricate, particularly those within the house. Critical and audience reception was generally positive, with commendation for character development. While it may not surpass the original, it solidifies the franchise's reputation as a force in horror cinema. Box office success further demonstrates its impact. It joins the original Saw in the A tier. Saw 3. By Saw 3, the series kind of settles into a predictable rhythm. Now that we know a bunch of people are going to get their guts spilled, the writers take the liberty to explore Amanda and Kramer's relationship. The film does get a bit plot-heavy, but it still delivers the same gore, shock, and disgust we've all come to expect from Saw. Verdict: although a bit weaker than its previous two counterparts, Saw 3 belongs in the A tier. The traps maintain their shock value and narrative significance. While it didn't receive unanimous critical acclaim, its exploration of complex characters and themes adds depth to the franchise. The box office performance reflects its enduring appeal, but how long was Saw going to get away with the same old? Saw 4. Not long is the answer. Saw 4 puts its audience through a lot. There are a lot of threads to keep track of, and the gotchas feel less earned and more forced, not to mention that they have nothing to do with the actual plot of the movie, which centers around a SWAT guy named Richie, who was introduced in 2 and now has to survive a Jigsaw game to save a pair of fellow officers. Verdict: Saw 4 disappoints and goes right into the C tier. Hoffman emerges as the new antagonist, but he's a much weaker and less interesting villain. The traps continue to be gruesome and shocking. Critical reception was mixed, with praise for the intricate plot but acknowledgement of its weakness. Audience reception was divided, as some considered it an essential addition to the story, while others found it less captivating. In terms of box office, it maintained a decent performance. Saw 5. Saw 5 is one of the weakest entries of the series. The cast of characters that play the game is the only saving grace for this movie. Everything else, unfortunately, is incredibly boring to sit through. And for a franchise like Saw, which is famous for its shock value, that sentence is a kiss of death in itself. Verdict: it joins Saw 4 in the C tier. Some traps feel less memorable, and the critical reception reflected this as it received mixed reviews. Audience reception was divided, with many considering it a weaker entry. Box office performance remained decent, but it marked a slight decline in interest. Saw 6. And what better way to gain back the interest of the fans than by changing the direction of the series entirely? Saw 6 changed gears by delving into social commentary on exploitation by predatory lenders and amoral insurance companies. Pretty much everyone put through a jigsaw test in this movie earns their living by exploiting high-risk mortgage recipients or revoking medical insurance from people with pre-existing conditions. Verdict: the original trilogy has company, as Saw 6 joins them in the A tier. Traps were in line with the direction the movie was going for, with a stronger emphasis on moral choices. Critical reception was favorable, particularly for its bold social themes. The audience appreciated its willingness to tackle real-world issues. While not a top-grossing entry, it solidifies its place in the series. Saw 3D. The thing about Saw 3D is that it could have not been released and fans would have been perfectly fine with it. Although the film's effects took a fortune to create and the plot itself was supposed to tie up loose ends in the Saw series, the film failed to capitalize on both. It's no wonder the franchise took a 7-year hiatus after this film. Verdict: no place better for Saw 3D than the D tier. Even though Saw 3D is mostly a dumpster fire, there are things around it that are entertaining. Some of the traps in the movie are really cool, and Sean Patrick Flanery really shines as a protagonist. However, the movie heavily relies on 3D gimmicks and fails to provide the same level of ingenuity seen in earlier traps. Ultimately, it was forgettable, and the impact of it vanished as soon as you left the cinema. It's not a surprise that critics bashed the movie, citing the misuse of 3D, and the audiences weren't happy with it either. In fact, a lot of people considered it the weakest entry in the series that the fans were looking to forget. Jigsaw. So almost a decade later, the Saw franchise came out with Jigsaw to help Saw fans get over the atrocious film that was Saw 3D. Jigsaw marked a fresh start for the franchise, rebooting the series with a blend of old and new elements. It brought back the intricate traps and moral dilemmas while introducing new characters and mysteries. While it didn't reach the heights of the early films, it successfully revived the franchise and brought Jigsaw's legacy into the modern era. Verdict: Jigsaw isn't mind-blowing, nor is it Saw 3D. It goes in the B tier. The traps regain their intricate design, offering a familiar yet fresh experience. Critical reception was mixed, but it successfully rekindled interest among the audience and performed reasonably well at the box office, signifying a promising reboot. Spiral. It's a damn shame the sequel didn't work out though. Chris Rock delivers a commendable performance in Spiral, and the traps maintain the expected level of gore and suspense. However, the film doesn't quite reach the heights of the original Saw films, both in terms of character depth and narrative complexity. Whilst it's a solid addition to the series and injects fresh energy, it falls short of being a standout entity. Verdict: it earns its place in the B tier along with Jigsaw. Spiral received a mixed reception from both critics and audiences. While some appreciated the fresh approach and social commentary, others felt it didn't quite live up to the earlier entries in the franchise. The reception was generally positive, but not overwhelmingly so. Coming back to the question first posed in the video, what is the greatest Saw movie of all time? Well, nothing comes close to the original, and so it's elevated from its place in the A tier to the God tier. What does your list of the greatest Saw movies look like? Let us know in the comments.